ова сум ја, као што како ја споредите мојата фата, тие патики види дека си исти. И избрав овие две слики затоа што мислам дека добро ја сумираат програмерската професија. Се викам Andrej, член сум на Кика Хаклава и член на Слободен софтвер Македонија. Веќе подолго време. Кика, за тие што не знаат, е простор слободен, отворен, каде што може луѓе да доаѓаат да прават вакви презентации пред полноци луѓе. Кај што збориме за програмирање, за секакви интересни теми, не знам, последно време Python има доста. ASYNC, роботи, тоа е една од следните ствари што се спремаат и така. Инако е проект на Слободен софтвер Македонија и постои више X години, не ми типна колку спрема. Се наоѓаме кај соборна, кај хотел добрето прилика, така да, не знам, ако случајно не знаете за хаклот, видимете на интернет. И така, инаку работам како програмер во H4 и ова е логото на H4. И имавме договор со мојот шеф Дуле, кој што го во фирмата познат како Газда Дуле, дека за секоја секунда која ќе стои логова, ќе ми даде по 10 евра, така. Така да можеме полека да го менјаме след. Да, ова е слика која е откопа мојот другиот микрофон. Освен работата, нели, како програмер имам и разни хобија, една од претходните работи со кои што си имам бавено се фотографија. Више не. И цртање стрипови. И тука сакам да искористам приликата и да го поздравам. Кај Даре? Даре! Ова е стрип од 2008 што го имам нацртано и Даре го има преработено и се работи за приказна за Исус како доаѓа и пробува да го направи мојот стрип добар, ама не успева и вика вино. Инстед и зашто го споминјам? Затоа што Даре го има прецртано, ја моите стрипови пен ги цртам, он го прецрта во Inkscape и така. И зашто го споминјам кој нешто? Затоа што денес кој на Даре роден 33 и тоа е бајдеви возраста на која што умрел Исус, така да Даре. Морам да искористам приликата. Да, од сегашните глупави хобија, едното е решање Рубикова коцка. Не се пречи тоа, и гњурење, тоа сме со девојка, која што исто публика. Така. Да, едно од тие хобиња, добре, мислам дека Искендов почетокот тремата и света. Едно од тие хобиња е правење презентации вакви кои што никад не се превише сериозни, се на различни теми, као, не знам, една беше уствари курс, кај што во Хаклаб, заедно со други колеги правевме компјутерот NAND логички порти. Имам правена презентација за компайлер кој што компайлира лист во Brainfuck, тоа е јазик со 8 инструкции. Се занимававме некое време во Хаклаб со пишување на ботови кои што пишуваат поезија во Python, со една другарка која исто е публиката. И генерално, не знам, ме занимаат све што е поврзано со Alan Turing и така. Значи, не знам, сакам да правам презентации, генерално не се превише сериозни, не се превише технолошки ориентирани во, не знам. И ова е таква. И у суштина не е за... Мислам, насловот е DoS на Sedmica, односно Denial of Service на сендвичарата и како можеме да ја експлоатираме. И да, само што не е за сајтот, нели, за овој сајт, туку за вистински за Sedmica како сендвичара и као. Инспирацијата ми беше уште од 2016 пред, не знам, ова беше кога Даре ме покани да да презентирам. Ја случајно ја најдов оваа тетрадка, бидејќи не знаев точно на која тема да зборам. Ја најдов тетрадка од 2016 и ми текна дека во еден момент бев баш фасциниран колку е Седмица интересен и ефикасен систем. Бев некако фасциниран на тоа колку добро прават бургери и имав некој ханч дека може да се направи некаква паралела со компјутерски системи и дека причините зашто Седмица е успешна постојат лекции што може да се избежат. Се разбира во еден момент бев као, окей, дали стварно за Седмица ќе збориме на DevCon и на конференција за програмери, ама после тоа ми искочи овој пост, баш се поведи за физичар што користи не за учи нуклеарна физика и не знам да експериментира. И не знам што постот искочи туку и овој коментар се појави, кај што ви кажат да ги собереме на учениците во Седмица. И викам окей, на добар пат. Окей. Структурата на презентацијата е, да, темата е DoS Denial of Service, ама првиот чекор кој што мора да го направиме е да видиме зашто е Седмица компјутер, или барем како ја тоа го прецепират. Значи, на највисоко ниво збориме за некаков blackbox систем во кој што доаѓаат нарачки, пари и некакви состојки. Не мора да се скареци, него салфетки, не знам, и искачаат сендвичи, така. И ако зумираме малце внатре, ќе видиме дека тоа е систем кој што е составен од некакви компоненти. Значи, постојат тие типови на компоненти кои што ги нарекувам RAW, постојат некакви wait. I just realized I'm talking in Macedonian. Okay, of all the possible fails.
Actually, good that you remembered it. I didn't want to interrupt you, but like, cool, go.
Yeah, because I saw appliances and I'm like, why am I translating things? Okay, sorry. I'll continue in English. Yeah, I'm not gonna do this service to myself. So, yeah. We can see a system that is composed of parts, and if we're talking about appliances like the microwave and the grill, we're talking about agents, and those are the servers, actually. We can see there are queues like the one that's the physical queue in the store and one on the phone line. But these are just the parts, and I think we can start digging into this matter by talking about how one sandwich gets processed, because that's the whole point of the system, to process sandwiches. So this happens, and I'm going to talk in detail because I know it's obvious how a burger gets made, but the devil lies in the details, right? If you want to deny service, you need to understand the details. So the first thing that happens is the agent, as we call our servers, pops an order from the queue. Actually, it's a person with multiple orders, possibly, but yeah. They pick up the bread, they put the bread in a paper wrapper, and then they put meat, they put fries, salt. Optionally, they put ketchup and mayonnaise, right? And they give you a napkin. They pack the sandwich, also optionally, it doesn't have to be that way, but they finally take money for the sandwich and they return change. And if there are no more sandwiches, they just repeat the same procedure. And like here, it's a very if you don't think about it this way, it's a very common thing, but it has a lot of resemblance with computer systems. Like we can start talking about technical things. For example, if you look at the burgers, like you don't come in Sedmica and be like, I want a burger, and it's like, in 15 minutes you'll get one. They pre-process stuff, right? So you can think of the metal things above the grill like buffers. And what's going on is actually like somebody is doing processing preemptively, so they can have steaks ready when you need them. So this makes making burgers a very fast operation, because it takes maybe 30 seconds or a minute for them to prepare one. And which would not be the case if you don't have these sorts of buffers. And it's interesting to think about how these buffers work. I don't know if buffers is the real name. I was struggling with caching and pull streams because what's actually happening is they're not just producing stakes, right? There isn't a person on the drill that's just producing things. In that case, like you would have like burgers on the floor, and you would overproduce them. And usually they don't end up in a situation where there's too few. So if you remember burning CDs with Nero, or whatever you use, there is this buffer thing, this buffer progress bar, and if it gets too low, the disk write fails. And that's because for some processes to happen, you need to, have the resources ready. And I think that Sedmica is very good at, achieving this buffering. Yeah, because it's slow operation. You want to do this only for slow operations, and we are interested in those when you think about denial of service. Then there are other interesting topics that come from flipping burgers. One of them is like maintenance. Yeah, this was the part that I wasn't sure about. One interesting concept is this: you put stakes on the grill, right? And agents that do this, servers, they don't just sit at the grill. They put the stakes and they go process orders, and later they see an indication by the stakes being brown that they need to flip them. This will be an important thing, and like just a note for later. Like the Kanban has a lot to do with this concept of signaling throughput and not oversaturating. Because when I was thinking about the subject, I was thinking about cron jobs and like, is this a cron job like event producing in a timely manner things? But it's not. So that's my note here. Like this process of how to produce the right amount of burgers is very interesting. Steaks, actually. So that's how hamburgers get made, and French sandwiches, for lack of better translation, are very similar because like putting fries and all of that is the same. But there are some new concepts that come here. Like, first of all, what happens when you order a French sandwich? They put it in the microwave, one of the 4 actually microwaves. They're redundant, and that's also important. They put them in the microwave, and like they start processing other orders or serving other people, right? And later, when the microwave beeps, you can think of that like a callback. That's one of the things that happens a lot in Node.js, right? With its event loop. Like you do something else, and then you get notified that you need to process this thing that you started working on. And yeah, that's one of the aspects why Sedmica is very efficient, because the agents are very like non-blocking. That's how work gets done. Great. Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to. How much time do I have left? Can I get some sort of an indication? 26 minutes? Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't want to bore you. Like, I just wanted to put you in a mindset where you walk in a Sedmica and you see this picture, and you're not thinking about the food that they'll give you, you're thinking about the system and the parts of it. And now we can like go in the topic of denying service. Like, what do we mean by this? What's a successful denial of service? So first of all, it's important that if you're doing DoS, you want to deny real users their real wants. If people want hamburgers, you want people not eating hamburgers. Another aspect is that it needs to be asymmetric. You need to put in little work or spend little money and get a lot of value from that, right? You don't want to be, yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Usually how you do this, you perform denial of service by depleting a limited resource. So whether it's I don't know, like space or memory or CPU in computer systems, you usually wanna oversaturate one part of the system so that nothing can work anymore. And if I was talking about hamburgers and French sandwiches. Why not toast, for example? Because toasts take a lot to make, right? And there are no shortcuts. You cannot buffer toast because they get cold very easily. I didn't focus on toast because maybe 5% of the people eat toast in Sedmica, and most of them eat hamburgers. So even if you like oversaturate the toasters, you still wouldn't be denying service to most people, and it's important. So, when thinking about the system, what do we want to focus on, right? Do we want, for example, to focus on the raw ingredients, and I call ingredients napkins also, so the things that Sedmica buys and like presumably has infinite supply of. Yeah, a note. I knew I will forget something. Like the chain, like in Sedmica, is you have the suppliers, then you have, I assume, in the back, like a big storage where you keep all the mincemeat and napkins and paper wrappers, and then you have these small buffers which are very near to the surface when you make the same sandwiches. You can think of them like layers of cache or the storage like a hard drive. So do we want to focus on the raw streams that come from outside? Well, not really. Let's assume infinite supply. Do we focus on the appliances? So, for example, like in the case with toasters, if you use all the toasters, nobody can eat toast. But Sedmica is good because they have redundant appliances. So they have like 3 grills and 4 microwaves and 2 frying pots, or 3, I don't know. Then do we focus on the queues? You can try to deny service by manipulating the queue, or the agents themselves. If there is nobody who can make sandwiches, they won't. So, do you focus on shared resources, maybe, like the fries, because all sandwiches potentially need fries for most? Or do you focus on slow processes, like baking a steak or warming the sandwich in bakery? And like if in real computer systems and websites, like you have, for example, when you enter a password, it gets hashed by decrypt potentially, and that's a very slow operation. So it's an actual attack to try to log in a lot of times, and if there is no rate limiting, you lose the system. So it's kind of unclear still what to focus on. So what I did was I tried different options. Well, in my imagination, I didn't actually do things. And before talking about that, I want to say that under normal load, the fast food is very efficient. And that, I mean by that, like people coming in randomly, ordering 1 or 5 burgers, maybe 20 in some rare cases. And what happens if there are a lot of people? Well, I mean, they just wait a bit more, but nothing gets stuck. And what if there are sandwiches, a lot of sandwiches by one person? Well, they get dedicated to one agent, but 3 agents still work in the background. And what if it's one type? Well, then you have redundancy. And if it's, in case of burgers, you have 3 grills that can produce maybe 60 steaks in 5 minutes or so. So they are covered for all the usual cases. And when we're on the subject, this relates to, for example, microservices and scaling. That you can think of the microwave as a microservice that does one thing in particular. Well, the problem is that in real life you cannot scale microwaves, but yeah, that's why computers are nice. And another thing is to think about micro-optimization. So for the most common operation, like making a burger, the agents have optimized themselves a lot. So sometimes when like this lady here picks a steak, she can maybe take 3 of them, so she doesn't have to walk 3 times. And those are optimizations that you don't do for very uncommon things like making a bacon or a chicken. And I want to focus especially on agents because I think they were the main inspiration, because they're multifunctional. So when they take your order, they can perform all the operations needed right? Because you don't have a lady that's baking steaks. You have somebody who is doing everything that's necessary from taking the order to taking the payment. That's a very important aspect. Yeah, common operations, maintenance. It's very interesting to contrast. Like, I think that everybody here noticed when they make, for example, when they bake the sandwiches, that they are very fast in doing that. And you can compare that, like, they have optimized the inner loop, right? But on the other hand, you can see agents shedding between the cells because they have slack time. I think this is an important thing to realize, that systems could work when agents have time to waste, so they're not like 100% utilized, because that's actually that's very important. And it's important to have slack time, because when those async jobs finish, like the microwave or the steaks need to be flipped, you need to have that free time, to address the request. Okay, anyway, going to the different attacks. One of the first things that might come to mind is, okay, I walk in and I order 100 burgers, because burgers are very common, and baking is slow, so it's like an obvious target. But the problem is that's kind of like pressing refresh on the homepage. It's kind of expected that everybody will be visiting the homepage. So like you can try to do this, but you don't have that asymmetry of putting in low energy. The equivalent is DoS-ing by the site not having bandwidth or something. It's not a very good attack. Another approach you can take is have 4 people make an endless order. So you just utilize all the agents and say like, okay, 1 hamburger, 1 French, 1 hamburger, 1. But and that's actually another bad attack when it comes to computers, and it's related to having a pool of limited resources. For example, it's not uncommon when a request comes from a web page to start a transaction in the database, so everything happens at once or gets denied. But if you do that eagerly, you can easily run out of the max number of open transactions. And it's important, like what would happen in real life, because computers are stupid but humans are not, they would realize you're bullshitting them, and you'll be like, well, okay, just tell me how many burgers you want, or not assign any more agents to your whatever. So again, not a very good attack. You can try filling the queue with 15 people, and that would actually increase the wait time for regulars a lot. And will it be expensive? I don't know, in Macedonia it's cheap labor. So, I would, my hypothesis is that it's expensive to bring in 15 people. And again, you have the problem of humans realizing what you're trying to do, the same 15 faces showing up, and you would eventually, like, they would shoo you out of the store. Next is like trying absurd things like ordering slices of additional cheese, like thousands. But I checked the price and it's like 40 dinars, so it would be a shit ton of money to spend. You can try the phone line because it's a separate queue, so maybe something can be done with it. But the problem is, and actually like before the talk, the person came to me and we talked about this, like it was one of the first things that he came up with. But the problem is that usually only one agent gets dedicated to the order, and you cannot have 2 people on the phone at once. And additionally, they can tell you like in 45 minutes you will get the order, so it's very nicely throttled, so you won't be affecting the real queue. But the thing is that you can actually do bad things. You can order, for example, 20 hamburgers or 15 or whatever. You can just make orders and you don't have to pay for them, right? You can, for example, fill up the counters by doing a lot of orders. So it's an attack. You would be wasting Sedmica's money, but is it DoS? I mean, the problem is that the agents will coordinate among themselves and say, okay, let's not waste all the steaks for the phone line. I don't know, today it seems weird. Yeah, and you can try the Jordan Peterson attack and force the agents to clean their drill and put lobsters in the frying pan. This doesn't make any sense, but I found it very funny when I thought about it. I just wanted to bash Jordan Peterson. Okay, so the seventh attack is actually perhaps in a place where you don't expect it to be, and that's where money are handled. So the attack is depleting the cash register. And let's think about the cash register, right? First of all, there is no redundancy, so there is only one of it. And then there isn't like a hard drive storage because they don't keep a lot of bills in the background, right? I suspect they don't. If they do, then they might have different problems. Is there a fallback like paying with credit card? Well, not really. You can only pay in cash. Is it required? Oh, by all means, because it's not an option to not take money for your sandwiches. So the attack, more specifically, can be this. I take all the 10 dinar bills from the cash register, and they won't be able to give change to people. And actually, it's very hard to distinguish between attackers and normal users because, you can make random orders, but you know that they won't be able to fill down. So what could be the mitigation? Well, they can solve the problem like they did with other resources and have some sort of buffering. And I mean maybe some sort of a change machine that's full of money but secure. I don't know, this thing probably doesn't exist, but still. Or they can have a contract with the bank and say, okay, when call you, bring us a lot of 10 dinar bills, and even though it might take 4 hours or 8 hours, they would have this buffer thingy. So, yeah, how much time do we have? Okay, we don't know. Okay. So now what we have done is we try to describe the system in computer terms and try to perform an attack. And we can see that there are a lot of similarities. But now I want to go one level above and actually discuss about other things. So even though I admire the system, this presentation I think, well, it's not about the current system that much. And if you imagine Sedmica like 20 years ago, there were probably like 10 people ordering burgers. So I don't think somebody sat down and calculated Poisson distributions on the queues to figure out like what's the optimal system. They kind of adapted. And if you open a burger shop, you shouldn't copy the system. Like the important thing I think here is paying attention. Like Sedmica's job is to make burgers. So like they need to optimize the process, and actually because a lot of the processes are kind of adjusted to the number of people that they have coming. Because if you bake like 20 steaks, they would just get cold because you don't have customers. So it's important not to forget, design systems in baking. You need to understand what you're doing and what are the innermost loops and what to optimize and what not just buy microwaves. And it's about scaling smartly because they didn't take their initial system and there were maybe 3 people of them, and when the traffic got 10 times, they got 10 times more users, they didn't just put 10 times more people inside the shop. They got, they were smart and they said, let's achieve the same thing with 4 people. And if you're interested in these topics, I was for a while. You can read about TPS, and those are not the reports from Office Space that you might remember. It's about the Toyota production system, and there are very nice books on Amazon about like how Toyota actually beat Ford. Ford was, I don't know if you know, but they invented the assembly line, so specialized workers performing one thing on a lane. Toyota had a completely different approach where they managed to satisfy a lot of, they figured out that people want customizable cars, so they figured out how to make smaller factories and have fewer workers and make less mistakes, but produce cars at a very high markup. So it's a very good read. You should read about it. And actually, like all of Agile and Kanban words was taken directly from that, of course, by American people who kind of ignored the culture and what's needed for that to succeed. So if I can recommend 2 books, those would be the Phoenix Project. Actually, no, first the Toyota Production System, I think that's the name of the book. And the other one is called the Phoenix Project. It's about DevOps and all sorts. I mean, it's about DevOps, it was kind of very influential. The story, it's a very interesting book, and the story is about a company that's just stuck. They're trying to build a computer system, but they're stuck. Nothing moves. And this guy sorts it out, and DevOps comes out of that. So yeah, those 2 books you, I guess, need to read. So wrapping up, like, was this a presentation about denying service? No, like, it's one thing to be smart and analyze the system and know how to break it. It's another thing to be an asshole and actually do it. So I know you all love Sedmica and one, but and I don't know, like, there are surprising lessons around. Like this is a topic that doesn't maybe hit you in the head as you walk into Sedmica when you're hungry, but if you can still think about, you know, what's going on and transpose those lessons in your everyday job. And while we're talking about jobs, it's important that you don't fall in love with your title. So I'm a programmer, yes, but, or like even worse, if you fall in love with the title of being a JavaScript programmer, or even worse, PHP programmer. Don't do that. Like, keep an open mind, and, you know, don't take Jordan Peterson too seriously also. Keep an open mind, and an important lesson is to look around you. And ask yourself this question: what are birds? We don't know. Thank you.